Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special Christmas Eve live at 5. I am your curator, Kevin Adkisson, with the Cranbrook Center for Collections and Research. And today we are obviously here in Saarinen House, which was the home of Eliel and Loya Saarinen from 1930 until 1950. It's, of course, one of the properties that we manage in the portfolio of the Cranbrook Center for Collections and Research. And it's been a while since I did a Live at 5 here from Saarinen House. And so I've had a special request to share some of the more personal stories and aspects of Saarinen House. And so today's going to be a little bit more freewheeling than our father had been a minister, Huho. But they were not as, I think, sort of deeply practicing religious. So they did not go to Christ Church Cranbrook. And I don't really know what exactly their sort of holidays in Finland were like. But here in the house, by the time they moved in, it was just Eliel and Loya. Eero was off at college. Pipson had married Bob Swanson. But they would have the holiday dinner here in the dining room. And so you've heard me tell the story many times about how Loya Saarinen would serve pineapple upside down cake for dinner with clients or with special guests, visiting artists or critics. And the pineapple upside down cake would mirror the sort of golden ceiling, the golden table with the golden ring of pineapple, and then the red niche with the red cherry. But for holidays, and I assume for Christmas as well, dessert was much more informal. And so they would be traditional Finnish desserts, but also pies. And Loya was a great baker and lover of pies. And so she would serve pies for dinner. They always would have traditional Finnish meals like lutefisk and other sort of Scandinavian dishes. But after they moved to America, Bob Swanson, the grandson, told me that his grandmother always included a turkey with holiday dinners because it was the sort of Americanization of the family to include a turkey with the Christmas dinner, even if you were serving all Finnish dishes otherwise. I do apologize that the internet connection is so spotty, but I'm hoping that you're staying with me a little bit. Today's won't be too long of a Live at 5. Now, another story that I got from Bob Swanson, who is their grandson. He's in his 90s, and he's come to talk to me in the house and tell me about what it was like to grow up with this being your grandparents' house. But on these great Studio Loya Saarinen rugs, which were all hand-woven here at Cranbrook by Loya Saarinen and her Swedish weavers, he always thought they looked like race car tracks. And so one thing that Bob Swanson would do is he would take his Matchbox cars and the grandkids would run around on the carpet playing with their cars, driving around on the sort of superhighway of good design. And I can totally see that as a lover of cars myself as a kid. It does not take too much for the imagination to turn something into a superhighway. Of course, my own Hot Wheels highways were not hand-knotted and not part of this sort of cohesive total work of art. But I do like, you can even see the sort of parking spaces around the edges. Now, You're going to see on the Cranbrook Kitchen Sink blog, the Center's blog on Friday, there's a great post coming out about one of the holiday cards. And in the 1920s or 1930s and 40s, there were so many young families living here at Cranbrook, whether that were students who were coming with their spouses and kids, or whether it was the young faculty with their families. Today, I guess we have, I don't know, maybe 3 kids who live on Academy Way. But back in the 30s and 40s, there were so many children, enough to have Santa Claus actually come by during the day. So not only did he come down the chimneys, the Eliel Saarinen designed chimneys, and leave presents, but he would also stop by on Christmas Day. And during that same time period, our photographer, Harvey Crows, was oddly absent. So I don't know what the relationship between Santa and Harvey Crows was, but they were never seen in the same spot. And for the Saarinen grandkids, Santa would actually come through this side door here, and he would make an appearance. Now, back here, we're connected to cellular data, so I'm hoping that solves our connection issue. But you can see the bar cart is back here, and so the adults would have their Christmas cocktails, they would have their appetizers. This piece of furniture was designed with entertaining in mind, so it sort of looks like a sideboard here. It could also serve as a drafting table, so you could pull it out. But on Christmas Day, it would be decorated for the holidays. They would be using it not as a drafting table, but as a piece of furniture for all the food. And then the little kids, sort of like the kids' table, the grandchildren or any of the other younger visitors would be stuck up here in Cozy Corner. And this is where we can see Eero Saarinen's childhood toys. So these are 2 dolls, which my colleague Lynette Mayman has written a wonderful post examining the lives of these 2 dolls and the companies that made them. And so these 2 with their clothes were Eero's. But the grandkids would sit up here, play with toys, while their parents and grandparents would have their cocktails on the other end. And then when Santa came in, he didn't make a beeline straight here. He would actually bowl the gifts down to the grandkids. And so not every present would necessarily roll. And so it became this sort of game of getting the presents from that side of the room to the kids who were not allowed to step off of this little ledge here. Now, another gift that was always quite popular with the family was Eero's gift to his mother. And so Eero Saarinen, from a very early age, was making little sculptures. He famously won the Ivory Soap International Carving Competition when he was in high school here at Birmingham. And for the rest of his life, he would take a phone book and he would use his architectural tools to actually carve the phone book. And so he would give his mother a phone book, and it would have the cover on it. It would look perfectly innocuous. And then you would open it up and the paper would have been entirely carved into a sculpture. So sometimes you would look down into them. Sometimes they would open up more like a pop-up book. But they were always these elaborate constructions that he gave his mother. And so they would exchange their gifts here in Cozy Corner. Now, what other holiday tours do I have to share? I see that Lynette is actually on the line, so if you can remember any of the holiday stories and jog my memory, I'll head upstairs next to talk about some of the people who they had visiting on the holidays. So I mentioned that the kids were already had flown the roost by the time the roost was constructed, so it was just Mr. and Mrs. Saarinen. However, there was a little orphan at the girls' high school who was interested in architecture, and she would spend her Christmases here with the Saarinens as the sort of adoptive parents. And of course, that little orphan girl was none other than Florence Knoll. And so Florence Schust, she went by Shu, was a student at the girls' high school. She wanted to be an architect. Her instructor, Mrs. Raceman, was the very first architecture graduate from Cornell, the first woman architectural graduate from Cornell. Shu met Eliel Saarinen, they became fast friends, and so she was sort of in between the age of Eero Saarinen and the grandkids, and she would spend her Christmases here in Saarinen House. So once the Kingswood dorms cleared out, Shu would come here, and she would stay with her sort of adoptive parent figures. Later, in 1948, the womb chair was designed by Eero Saarinen and manufactured by Knoll International, which was the furniture company that Florence married into. So I see that Lynette is saying Eero was Santa. I have not necessarily heard that story that I can remember, and I'm not sure what the mistletoe story was. A little bit later, and I don't have a place to show it because it happened in the 1970s, Mrs. Wallace Mitchell was a very fastidious housekeeper, and she had essentially spent her entire married life here on Academy Way. So her husband, Wallace Mitchell, was a watercolorist and painter. He came to Cranbrook in 1932, and he stayed here until his passing in 1977, working his way up from instructor in watercolor to director of the Art Museum to finally president of the Academy of Art. And it was in his first year living in this house that the faculty was sort of ribbing the Mitchells because they had it entertained here. And the house had always been the sort of center of Academy life. And so finally, the Mitchells relent, and they're going to throw a party, and it's going to be real hip. And so they got all the furniture carried out, and they put like poofs around. I mean, this was 1971. They put poofs and beaded curtains, and they served all the food on big wooden plates, sitting on the floor, and there was a cheese wheel, and they started dancing with the stereo, and suddenly the cheese fell off of the tray and was ground into the floor. And that was the last time Mrs. Mitchell ever threw a party, because she had to then scrub all this food out of their furnitureless floor party. So it looks like Ron Swanson told Lynette, or that's where Lynette heard that Eero Saarinen was Santa. I certainly believe it. I had not heard that. I always heard that Harvey Crows was the Santa. So I thought it would be fun, since you all have stuck with me for so many months of this pandemic and doing Live at 5, and I may just delete this later, but Christmas continues here in Saarinen House. So you may not know this, but the curator actually lives here in Saarinen House. And so while we don't decorate the museum for Christmas, which is a policy I hope to one day change, except that we have no idea how the Saarinens decorated for Christmas, probably minimalistically, I wanted to take us into my apartment and just look at some Christmas, because why not? So it is a little bit of a Christmas wonderland in here. And so this room was the blue room, and Mrs. Saarinen had a loom that she would sit and use in this room. It now has my main Christmas tree, where I have an ornament for every year of my life. Multiple ornaments, in fact. I have not put this year's ornaments on, but we can see some very early ones from the 90s. Let's see. We can see the big chicken. This was the 2019 ornament, which I got in Santa Fe. It's actually a blown gourd. And then it is really not a shabby place to live. So I look out over the courtyard. We're directly over the dining room here. And then I do have two trees in the living room, because when I'm sitting watching TV, one tree is behind me, and I like to be able to see a tree. And so this one is decorated with McDonald's McNuggets come to life. And then when I feel like it, so we have the white lights, but then I also like colored lights, so I have a whole color changing system. It really is elaborate. And then the real reason why the people have demanded that we see where I live, and that tree recently went out, which is the tragedy of Christmas 2020, is that I have constructed this elaborate Christmas village. So we have completely left the Cranbrook Live at 5 now, and we are just visiting the idle mind of the curator here. And so this is a Playmobil Christmas village that I assembled and built, and it started rather more modestly, and I was trying to use my childhood Playmobil sets, and then I decided, why not expand it into the most elaborate village possible? And so we have little children on parade, and then we have 6 geese a-laying who are parading over here. Little Christmas markets. There's some children sledding down the hill over here. And then I decorated the inside of all the houses. And if we look over here at this house, we see Studio Loya Saarinen's Cranbrook Weaving #1 is hanging above the mantelpiece there. And then there's all sorts of little scenes and happenings throughout the village street. And I did do all the interiors, and you kind of can't even see them, but it's like a dollhouse. The most fun part is putting it together. And then Santa lives at the top of the street. But I have to show you all the best little house, which I made as a tribute to Cranbrook, a little artist studio. And so we know it's the artist studio because there is this sign with the painter's palette and the little elf who is painting a bird. And then look who is getting their portrait painted, Santa Claus. So if we open the window here, you can see the little painter is hard at work. And then some of his existing paintings are there behind him. And then down below, getting ready for the next holiday, are the little Easter bunnies who are busy painting their eggs. And then on the back side of the castle is the living Nativity. And then we have the fun ski slope, which one of the snowboarders has paused to observe the birds of the village. And then Lynette, you said you needed the sauna. There's the little sauna. And so this is my tribute to the Saarinens and the Finns. I gave them a little sauna, which I hacked together from other Playmobil sets to invent my own little sauna. The happy couple out getting their Christmas tree. And then a little snowball fight here. It is a little bit excessive, but it has been the delight of my fall 2020 to make this. Oh yeah, this is the other wise man who's getting ready to go on stage at the Nativity. So he's at the tailor shop and he's getting fitted for his hat. And then there's a little restaurant. It's fun. So, oh, Lynette, there are so many cats. There's a cat here. There's a cat drinking water here on the stairs where the little busker family is also hanging out. There's a cat in the Nativity walking along the wall. There's 2 cats up in the bake shop. So thank you all for humoring me as we grossly distract ourselves from the usual content of Live at 5. There's also cats, and then there's also things to chase cats, like little squirrels crawling across the village. So I hope you enjoyed this brief foray into the life of the curator. And then I also have the kitchen downstairs as my own. So much like Loya Saarinen, I will soon be preparing Christmas dinner here at Saarinen House. Unfortunately, I won't be eating it on the Saarinen family dining table, but at my own dining table. So it is a huge house, which is how there's an apartment and a house. Thanks for this distraction, everyone. There's only 11 of you watching. So I thought it would be fun to bring Saarinen House forward into the 21st century. And I don't think Willie's watching any longer, but at one point Willie found a guide to Art Deco Christmas decorations from a 1930s House and Gardens magazine. And so one day I really want to make those trees because Saarinen could have made them. I don't know if they did, but they could have. So one day I will decorate Saarinen House, if it is the last thing I do. And then if you take a walk around Cranbrook anytime, you will know where I live by looking up from the art museum. And my house is the one that is completely illuminated by Christmas trees. It's a little hard to see. It'll probably be there till February, let's be real. Okay, thanks so much for watching, everyone. I think I am doing live at 5 next week, but if you want more of the hardcore Cranbrook content that you've come to know and love, today was a little bit more family-oriented. Do sign on to Facebook tomorrow because we are finally doing the Kingswood interior tour on Facebook Live at 5 tomorrow. So I am really looking forward to it. It has been a trick during the pandemic to try and get into Kingswood for just a number of logistical reasons as Cranbrook operates. But Amy Claire Roche, the director of schools, is more than delighted to have us come into Kingswood tomorrow when the school is closed for Christmas break or for winter break, and when we can have it to ourselves. So log on to Facebook, to the Cranbrook Center for Collections and Research Facebook page at 5 o'clock tomorrow. It'll probably be a full hour live at 5 for the Kingswood interior. Thanks for humoring me while we went inside my personal house in my absurd Christmas village. Hopefully, after spending all of this time and eBay resources on building my Christmas village, hopefully I'll be able to assemble it next year at Cranbrook House and Gardens Holiday Splinter as not as the curator, but as a community member donor, since they usually have model train builders and other people with unique collections do displays at Holiday Splendor. My thought with the village is that it can have another life there. If not, it has made me immensely happy to have and to build, so you can't fault that. Anyways, I hope everyone has a great rest of your holiday season. I thought about taking this week off, and then my family really pressured me to take a tour into my apartment, so they won, and it was great to do another Live at 5 with you. And I hope everyone enjoys the holidays. I hope you had a happy Hanukkah. I hope you're looking forward to a Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy New Year. I hope you enjoyed the winter solstice, all the holidays crammed right here together before the bleak midwinter starts. So, goodbye everyone, and I will see you next Tuesday for another Live at 5, or tomorrow on Facebook for the Live at 5 tour of Kingswood.